Did I get it right? Is it up? It's not up on the screen yet. It's not on YouTube yet.
Yeah, it just takes a couple minutes, I think.
Yeah, I think we got a long delay today. It's probably because it's raining here and we got a long delay, but maybe I just need to.
Got a long delay today.
There
Probably
it is.
because it's raining here and we got a long delay.
Okay.
But
Yes.
maybe I just need to.
There it is. Okay.
Yeah.
That was weird. It's weird. It's anywhere from 30 seconds to whatever it is. Hello, Forrest. How you doing? Forrest asked me a question. Why I put that up there today? It was I'm just trying to head off an argument that I kind of seen coming. It was an argument about incommensurability and genetics and DNA with my fatherhood theories and everything. So if you're coming with an incommensurable theory, then it's just not going to work with me. And there are scientific proofs and things. I was going to add the actual scientific, but I like to keep that a surprise.
Yeah.
And yeah. So how was your week? It's raining here now. It was a lovely last few days, and I did a whole lot of bike riding.
Yeah, I got into nature. I did 2 walks, about 2 to 3 miles, both of those days. Yeah, I think it's just getting that sunlight helps.
Yeah, how's your foot feeling?
Yeah, it's doing good. The foot's doing a lot better.
Good,
Yeah.
getting back on track and everything.
Yeah.
I bought
The main thing is being able to sleep at night. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
When the foot starts getting wacky at night, it's hard to sleep. You get restless.
Yeah.
But now it's good. I hate to take medication, ibuprofen, and I take a relaxation pill or whatever, and muscle relaxer, and I want to get off of those, but I will over time. I will. Yeah.
I bought some of those inserts for my shoes, and you should do it anyways. I always, if you want good foot health, as you get older, I mean, new inserts every few months, and then buy yourself new socks and throw away your old socks, and always keep a pair of socks with you during the day, especially in the summer. And that'll, I've learned that lesson in life, but my feet have been I had a little bruise underneath. If I told you my pedal, sometimes I get on and I come, when I do the little jumps and everything, I come down on it, and I always come down on my left side. And then the pedal, if I don't keep my pedal on my arch and it falls back to where it's more comfortable on my sole, right in that sole area, it presses up against there and it gives me a bruise.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm wondering, why? Well, I bought the new inserts now, and they took care of it, and then it doesn't hurt no more. So, I mean, foot care is really important as you get older, isn't it?
Yeah, because it's tied into your back health too.
Right.
So you have to.
Your posture.
Yeah, your posture and keeping the balance. Yeah, these things you take for granted. When you're younger, you don't realize.
Yeah.
Boy, when you get like it happened with my shoulders and neck, and I was able to I went to the chiropractor and he fixed that up. And boy, I don't have any neck and shoulder problems. I know you have a lot of issues with that, and that's a tough thing to do when you're trying to sleep and all that stuff, right?
Yeah. So I guess the topic today is traditional misinformation. So I put that in there, not a generalized topic. We know what misinformation and disinformation is. We see it all the time now in the news, but we get what we call traditional misinformation, and it starts in school, and they do it. And people are waking up to this idea that most of the time in our news, most of the time in our even in our science, and that's why I put that in there in the low bar. People want to misinform you for religious reasons. They want to misinform you for governmental reasons and everything, and that's where this thing kind of pulls in. They want fathers to believe they're fathers, and they want fathers to believe that they have some connection to the child, which is very untrue. There's an incommensurability problem in what happens with the DNA as it reshapes and forms inside the zygote and the and then it splits to the two sister cells. They're called sister cells for a reason, because it's more like it's the DNA at that point is more like it's a sister of the mother, rather than a child of a father that's held responsible. And what happens is that the traditional conservatives when they think that process happens, they think the DNA lightly wraps around the other DNA and they snuggle up together and they get intimate and then they exchange genes. That could be farther from the truth. What happens is Barbara McClintock in the about 50 years ago, she had intuitional feeling that was not wrong. And then that's where the argument of postmodern comes between rationalism and intuitionalism. She was 100% right. It's a transposon gene. They transfer to each other. One gene, or not even, it's called a jumping gene. A jumping gene, the genes rearranged themselves like corn. She did experiments with corn. You get maize corn and you get multicolored corn. Them are very good to eat. They were trying to figure out what was going on with that, and it's a transposon gene. That's what happens in the zygote. That's what happens with babies. The genes jump around to reflect. Well, that's why I say it's a photographic copy of the father's 86% or something. It takes 80, but all DNA from a rat to a human is pretty much 72%. So very little transposing actually happens in there to reflect more of the father's gene. Like I said, if it was a sister's gene, it would be like 82%. If the father's gene would reflect 86%. So if you're beginning with a family member or something, and then you can see there's very small differences. Like I say, in most sciences, there's very small differences between things, but these genes jump around. It's more like they jump around. They simply take on different characteristics. The thing with that is traditionalism is going to feed us this misinformation about what exactly happens so they can keep fatherhood and they can say that you are responsible. No, what happens in her body is 100% hers. You have very little. You can take a DNA from a caveman 50,000 years ago and insert in it, and what she would do is she'd take a photographic copy of that. Like I said, they don't intertwine. The genes would jump around to reflect a viable source. And that's why viable source and means a lot. You think about diversity is a viable source. The gene doesn't reflect her genes. Otherwise, she disposes. It creates the process happens again. She disposes, but she saves a little piece to say, no, that gene won't work. So a viable source, the genes jump around. She starts manufacturing a baby. They're two sister cells. They separate at that point. They begin to separate. You can see the process. That's 100% hers. Even in science, we get misinformation. Traditional misinformation is that, the love gene. The DNA just kind of wraps around each other, and it is in love. There's no such thing as love. And there's no such thing as magic. And this is the process that happens around. The genes jump around. It's called the jumping gene. And that was a big issue in postmodernism. If you read about postmodernism and Barbara McClintock versus the big issue with postmodernism and the feminist point of view is an intuitional point of view towards a rational point of view. And these are one of the examples that's given. But even with that, people traditionally balk and they go, oh, no, that cannot be possible because we need fatherhood and we need men to believe their fathers. And men are like I said, there's Corvid's disease. It's a mental disease that most traditional Corvid's disease. You can look at what's a good example? What's that? Eureka. There was an episode in Eureka where the sheriff had Corvid's disease. They said he's Corvid's disease. She was pregnant, and he had sympathetic pregnancy on that. So that's what happens with most males. And I just think it's. I give the process of enmeshment. You get enmeshed And when you're with a female and the process of enmeshment starts, that's when you're too physically close to her. You're too mentally intertwined with whatever she's doing. You just start displaying symptoms of the female, and it all starts making the simping, the all that stuff. And traditional conservatives often neglect science and neglect things, and misinformation is put out there that there's love hormones and love genes, and these things do things that are funny, and that's a portion of misinformation. That's why I put it down there. Me and Joey were reading. I get these things delivered to my mail about fatherhood. I guess they found out that I'm a advocate, not an advocate, a dissenter from fatherhood. So they send me these things every day to try to convince me that and it comes from what would you call it? An additional search on the internet where I signed up for an intellectual board talking about father, and they want me to agree with them all the time, and I don't agree with nobody on that stuff. And they send me these 130 page like why we need fathers just to be more slavery, and I pick them apart and I say, well, this is you're expecting slavery, and this is not true. Fatherhood's a voluntary thing of mentorship. That's all it is. And if you can get men to volunteer for mentorship, that would be great. Men want to volunteer for it, but to hold them responsible for some other person's action, the females, which they have nothing to do with having that baby, pretty much. It's just like I explained, it's just a genetic transfer of a photographic. It's like the Indians believed if you took a photograph of them, you captured their soul, so they wouldn't let you. And they have the right to believe that stuff. But all she does, it's the same thing. We're so stupid. Traditional conservatives are so stupid that they believe that you capture the essence of a soul in a photograph. And they won't let go of those magical, because they have magical items, they have magical crosses, they have magical Jesus, and they have their magical God that never shows up, that always seems to get farther away. And a lot of their thinking is magical thinking, and you got to call it up, but you have to know what you're talking about as a Mgtow too. You have to do these studies. You have to actually figure out what things are commensable with other things. And we talk about commensability. We talk about words that match on the field. Durkheim, I often give the example of Durkheim. Durkheim done it 100 years before Kuhn and Feyerabend. Paul Feyerabend and Kuhn were discussing postmodernism, and they were discussing incommensurability at that time. But Durkheim done that many years ago. They take credit for it, and it was the difference between material and the material social facts and non-material social facts. And these are social facts that are in ideas, social structures, social institutions, and that's our argument. We're on the field of material social facts with in Durkheim's terminology, a non-material social fact coming down from that is morality, it's collectiveness, it's consciousness, it's social current. So the material social fact is the institution. The non-material social fact is the consciousness of the institution in morality and stuff that are mental. And I wanted to explain that, because that's not a lot of people do that kind of thinking and make that, but it's the kind of thinking that we have to do if we're ever going to make the argument. So hello, Jim, hello, Forrest, hello RP, hello everybody that's coming in. Everybody here was first sperm. We are all winners. yeah, we were the first ones to it, but it doesn't happen the way and it's a traditional lie, and we get a lot of traditional misinformation in this world. What do you think about that, Joe?
Well, I mean, yeah, we saw those articles in all they seem to do is so they're not happy. Like these, they're not. They want new fatherhood. So they talk new fatherhood to them is just the old fatherhood with just more slavery.
Yeah, you know what happened in '74? The Morrill Act was gone, so polygamy, and I explained that, and that's something these guys should know, anyways. The Morrill Act is gone. There's polygamy amongst girls. They want to keep the polygamy, but they want to keep the old fatherhood too, and they want to have a slave with it, and that's why we did after the Reconstruction. We did we approached those two, slavery and polygamy, at the same time. With the dissolve of the Morrill Act, I think it's a Morrill. If it's not the Morrill Act, let me know. I think it's the Morrill Act that dealt with polygamy, and they got rid of it right around. So people ask me all the time, what happened in 1974? What happened in 1972? A lot of things happened in that time. No fault divorce. The Morrill Act, the Polygamy Act was dissolved. That gave women the ability to be polygamous with baby daddy number 1, 2, 3, and 4. It made social services so much bigger then, because you had so much more. What do you need to run social services? In '74, social services was on its way out because we had very little poverty in America. So they had to increase poverty above 10% to 13%. That's what you need in America, so Health and Human Services can survive. So they did these two things. They no fault divorce. The Equal Rights Act was starting to be enforced. It's not an actual act, but it's how people think. And then the polygamy was taken out, and women and men are allowed to be polygamous. Well, men aren't allowed to be polygamous. Women are allowed to be polygamous, because you can see it with baby mama 1, 2, 3, 4. But they're always arguing that fact, how to bring fatherhood back into this thing under conditions of slavery. And that's the part that bothers me, because it's a lie. It's a traditional lie, and it's a lie that scientists should work on. Social scientists should definitely work on the gender divide now and the social lie of fatherhood. But as long as you got these people, every day they're writing hundreds and hundreds of programs, and it comes under the broad definition of Health and Human Services, to get grants so they can run, like the Good Men Project. You had a run-in with the Good Man Project lately, haven't you, Joey? Well, the Good Man Project is a project that runs through Health and Human Services, mainly focused on two groups of people, Mexican males and black males. They won't say that. It's a very racist program that says we're going to try to bring black men back. After they destroyed the black community, they want to bring black men back into the slavery situation of gender dynamics by making them more morally responsible. So they write hundreds of these papers a year, and they send them out to people like me in these intellectual groups where we discuss these things, and try to convince us that all the male needs to do is just not pay attention to all the facts and just the original meaning of the responsible party. You're just going to be the responsible party, even though there is no real reason why you should be the responsible party. It's her body. It's her choice. It was her decision to get pregnant. It was her body makes the baby. She has the baby. It's 100% her. It's 100% her. And then we relieve her of the moral duty of monogamy. Then we relieve her of the moral duty to take care of that baby. We place that in the government, and the government holds you responsible for that as a male because of this word, this one word, father. That's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous concept. Now, these things during the 70s, and when Rawls was discussing social justice, and when Kuhn and Feyerabend were discussing the paradigm shift that had happened in the 70s, and there was a big paradigm shift, and I just explained what the paradigm shift was. It was feminism. It was intuition versus rationalism. It was these laws that are hinging on back laws that no longer makes sense in light of the new paradigm. And we have to change our society, and we know that the cost of changing the society means that sometimes you have to rip down the whole other society and rebuild a new society. And that's my idea. We get rid of the marriage institution. We get rid of divorce institution. We just say, girls, if you're going to get pregnant, you're 100% responsible. If you become responsible under those terms of your body, your choice, and you don't have a job or you can't find a way, you can go down to the local library, you can blah, 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 type your name, social security, how many children you have, what money you're making, and the government will assist you. That system would cost 2/3 less than the system we have now, which is back to Durkheim, the social fact of systems and institutions often become self-involved with their own needs rather than the needs of what they were designed for. The money no longer goes from altruism to the poor. It goes this way and then back and trickles down. So that's a horrible system. It's designed on a bunch of traditional lies, which I explained. And one of those traditional lies that you're a father. You're not a father. And that's traditional misinformation is given to children. And that's one of the biggest crimes in any scholastic institution. One of the biggest crimes is lying or misinformation, disinformation. You can do that in a fantasy fiction book, but in life, in a scholastic situation, you should be honest. And that's what we do here. Our loyalty as Mgtows are to loyalty to honesty and truth. And we have a devout loyalty to that in what they would call the monks. We have devout loyalty in that, and all we are is just regular guys that understand that we're maybe slightly above regular guys, but we're regular guys that understand, and we can see the observable dishonesty. We can see observable truths, and we say, no, this doesn't work this way. This traditional, they're just tradcon garbage with get yourself a little woman, get married, make her your slave, and make her pregnant, and you relieve her of all of her responsibilities to her body, and then you're going to take care of it. That's bull. That's garbage. But that's the way 98% of the world think. It's an untruth. And that's what I wanted to talk with Joey today about, the misinformation that's given to us. And we can see it in small segments. We can see it in the news. We can see it in politics. And politics is what we usually see it in, because politics is a science, the science of sociology. Anybody that's taken a poli-sci course, which most of us have, know that science is, but it's not the only one. There's biological sciences. There's poli-sci. There's sociology. There's psychology. There's hard sciences, technology, and chemistry. And these things should always be kept in question and critiqued. Now, fatherhood just so happens to fall into gender dynamics, which follows under biology. And when we're talking about these things, we should know what we're talking about.
Yeah, well, I've just read it in the chat. I mean, Derek is our buddy.
Yeah, Derek's our buddy.
I want to be a father someday, though. I mean, it's like you got to listen. You got to listen a little bit better. I mean, sorry.
Yeah, he wants to
be mean. Yeah, I got that reputation of being kind of a jerk sometimes, but that's just because I'm trying to wake people up a little bit about this whole marriage thing and fatherhood thing, and you're gonna really enslave yourself, and life's hard enough as it is, and now you're gonna have all these dependents, and then you get no respect either.
Yeah, the thing with fatherhood is you can become a father of a labeled the responsible party if you adopt a child and that child doesn't come with a woman. In my process, you can have surrogacy, and you can be a father and be a Mgtow, be a very good father, probably. As long as, but in this society, as soon as a child is born, it comes with a mother. And then you have to make these ludicrous laws that make the fathers or the men responsible for that child, because the mother's not going to be. 99% of the time, no, 90. I don't know what the percentage of independent women that just have a sperm donor and take care of the baby. I have 2 children like that, where the mothers want nothing to do with me. They don't want my money. They don't want me around. They don't want me inserting myself into the situation. They want to raise those children, and then that's a better. It's better for the children. It's better for. I'm sure they're taken care of, and I'm sure that. But on the other hand, us men haven't figured out how to have children under our conservatorship without a female, because the female is always attached in the eyes of the law.
Yeah, it's really incredible. Men can't see it. I don't know why they can't see it.
That's just parentage, isn't it?
Yeah, they're just brainwashed. I mean, I like Derek. I don't mean to make fun of him, but you're kind of brainwashed. I mean, you're taught that this is the way to go, but I don't know. You're going to really shorten your life, and
the only problem with the traditional conservative method is that it often breaks. And what happens when 86% of the time it's going to break, and when it breaks, the judge kind of fesses up. He fessed up with me, and he says, "You're no longer the father," and that's the divorce process. But he says, "You are the father because we're going to make you responsible for these children in law." Now that's the other side of my family. And that came through a traditional conservative Catholic marriage. But they're still lying. The judge, no, you're not the father. There's something more to a mother. It grows in her belly. She is a mother. The mother is a real thing. It was the host to the baby. It grew the baby from step 1 to step whatever billions. She did that on her own, but they never hold her responsible for that. And they'll hold you responsible, like I said, paydor.
Yeah.
Payee. You're the payee. You're the payor. You're from the German, the responsible party. You become the payor. And that's the only way they could do it, is by getting slaves. Now, there's a better system out there. If we do away, but we have to do away with social systems like health and human services. We have to do away with social systems like marriage, and these are social facts and outside of our institution. I think they're very corrupt social facts. And if you ask anybody about the marriage system and divorce system, we're going to say that's a corrupt system. Of course it's corrupt. It's a social fact that was corrupted. And in the way all social facts, material social facts, get corrupted.
Mm-hmm.
But, and my theory is perfect. Someone asked me today, like, if they could come on or something. I expected an argument from somebody on this fatherhood thing.
No,
but
Luigi, maybe he's the only.
I don't know who that is exactly. I think it's Joe Buddy, but because it was Joe Buddy was coming around, and he's using his name, and then all of a sudden Luigi started coming around, and then and then like no more Joe Buddy, but we have this Luigi person that's coming around, and I'm sure he wants to argue for fatherhood. He believes he's the father.
He doesn't. Yeah,
It's so scientifically we're correct. Mgtow.
Well, Joe Buddy, he must have a wife that's been dating him like pretty good now for a few years, but that switch is going to come. It could come any day. Like for you, it took what, 10 years until your
16 years? Yeah, 16 years.
Yeah, 16 years. So the first 15 were, I guess, pretty good, right?
Oh yeah. It worked out as long as we worked in the traditional.
And then it just all of a sudden that 16th year or whatever.
Right.
It happened to my buddy. He had 2 marriages for 17 years, and
when that time comes, now you're under a different system, which you did not volunteer for.
Yeah, so you're gonna get baited, and it might seem like everything's going so well, and you got this job, you're making money, whatever, everything's going good, your property's going up, whatever, life's going good, but then things happen in life later on, like you get health issues, you lose your job, your wife gets hooked on
crack cocaine.
Yeah. Well, you said it. Whatever. You know what I mean? Like, or she might be interested in a younger man.
Right. Just sexually.
There's the life changes. Yeah, things change pretty quickly in life, and then
they change pretty quickly, and then they decide that all that idealism that they had before is out the door, and they get a chance to. That's where polygamy comes in. They get a chance to redo it, and men don't. We can't have a financial abortion. We can't have a paper abortion. We can't say, oh, and the logic of it is I was just here as a volunteer mentor for these children. I didn't really sign up for this course that now she has a boyfriend sitting on my couch. I don't have to feed him too. I don't have to feed you. It's your responsibility because it's your baby, not mine.
Yeah.
But that's what the institution is so bizarre. They're so wrong, and that it's all fantasy fiction, and they draw up these fantasy fictions in their head. But that's what we call the non-material social facts, where their morality sometimes is and I explained, and that's why I explain all these things, where their morality becomes loyalty to the group, and then the group as the traditional system, the material fact. What material fact was to this non-material fact? It was the group, and a group is our government, our social programs and the social programs, like we said this week, when we were looking at all those explanations for how to get fathers to be good slaves, they're based on racism. They're based on non-facts. They're based on traditional misinformation. They're based on shaming. They're based on a whole lot of things that are repugnant. It should be repugnant to any social scientist out there right now. And we have a dedication to a loyalty. Our loyalty is the loyalty to the truth. And I explained that last time, how the loyalty comes from asking these questions. It comes from learning. It rolls down in a very natural way within the mind, the brain, and the human aspects of being on this planet, on this terrestrial planet.
So we got to get Susan here. Hopefully she can join us in the chat. That's probably Joe Buddy's sister-in-law or something, but yeah, she's saying live for your children. It's like
you could you could have a great relationship with a child as a male. You could be his mentor and everything. I'm not saying that's not possible. You can affect the child's life in a positive way. But as for the lies of biology that we're being told, as for the slavery that we're being enslaved into, these things are not moral.
Yeah.
You can't justify them by saying the child's needs first. That's what they didn't. They do that in that thing that we read. Oh, the child's needs are first. No, the child's needs are not first. It's not a logical, because the child has no rights. The mother, you're saying you're interposing the dependency, see, that we talk about to the mother, and she is taken care of. And that's wrong. It's barbaric. It's a barbaric system we live under that's created sometime during the Victorian age that we should have grown out of.
Yeah, we need to evolve. That's the thing. It's these I don't even want to call them elite, but whatever, the people that are running, they're
right.
We'll just call them the rich, whatever you want to call them. But it benefits them to have a traditional conservative model. Yeah, traditional conservative model benefits them because they have more control.
They have more control, and it fulfills the need. Every society has a need for 20 to 30% slaves. Anybody that does postmodern slavery, any kind of courses or any kind of information, you're going to realize at a certain point that every society has a 20 to 30% need for slaves for labor, because there's people that want to do the labor, and there's people that assume that they don't have to do the labor. And that's what we're talking about, the material facts of these people that assume they don't have to do the labor. So they the marriage system becomes a very good tool to put people into that category of the 12 to 15% that are needed, the 12 to 15% of people that are needed to be impoverished to the slavery. That's where slavery comes from. It's always through debt.
Yeah, they get you a lot of different ways.
And how do they get you in debt as a male? It's easy.
Marriage
and divorce.
Biggest one. Having children.
It's right. Your response. All of a sudden, you have this. It would be like a movie where they're getting slaves over in Africa, and they bring them on a boat and they give them a baby doll. And they say, you're responsible for this, and then they charge them and put them in arrears and charge them for passage, get them over to America during the 1860s and say, now you're responsible for that. And they're going, what the hell? And now you owe us. And you got passage, so your passage was X amount of money. You can work it off, but you can never really work it off if as long as you got the check off. Or what's that called? It's in movie language. It's just something that the MacGuffin. It's a MacGuffin. They gave you a MacGuffin and they sold you a MacGuffin, and as long as the MacGuffin exists, they can keep you into that debtor situation because of the MacGuffin.
Yeah, look at this Susan chick, huh? Like, you don't want to be a slave, but your natural sexual desire and desperation towards a mother figure forces you to bow down. I mean, they always bring it back to sexual desire. I think it's
right. It has nothing to do with sexual desire.
No.
Biology is biology.
Right. It's not even like, if you look at nature, they're not going out and humping each other every hour here or every day.
Right. The natural default. Yeah. The natural default position of a male is sex off. When you're fixing a car or building a house, you're not thinking about that. That's your default position. If your default position is on, you're a sick person.
Yeah, because this whole idea of it's over sexualized culture without a question. Society we live.
Yeah, the problem.
You shouldn't even really be having sex. It's your business what you want to do, but you shouldn't really be talking about it. Like you don't see I always bring it back to nature, because you don't see the animals like saying, hey, I made it with this.
I'm running. You can talk about like how I hit that over there.
Yeah, I hit that lion, the little female lion. I hit that today. Like they don't talk about that. They don't. It's not even. It's mostly done just to procreate. It's not really. It's just It's not. It's like, you know what I'm saying. It's not even like a big. What do you call it? It's not a big deal in nature. It's not. It has nothing to do with survival. The only part it has to do with survival is creating other beings, other animal, your species, keeping your species going.
I watched this funny. I told you this story once. I was down at a college campus, and in the middle of the college campus was a what do you call those with the trees and everything? The arboretum.
Yeah.
There was an arboretum there. And we were all sitting around, and I was, I can't remember what I was doing at that point. I was and there was chipmunks everywhere. And it was spring, and the chipmunks were mating. And the college kids were all sitting around, and these were young college kids. I was about 35, 40 at the time. And they're, oh, look at the chipmunks, they're playing. And they're taking pictures and putting it on their phone, and all the chipmunks were playing. And I says, the chipmunks aren't playing. And they looked at me, and I says, the chipmunks are mating. It takes about 2 seconds for a chipmunk to mate. And that's what they do. The chipmunks are running up on each other and hitting it. It's about 2 seconds for a chipmunk. They've made the fastest. And I says, didn't anybody ever teach you this? I mean, go to the library. There's books on this, and that's what they're doing. We're interrupting their mating programs here. But in the chipmunk life, it takes 2 seconds, and then the male chipmunk goes away.
Well, now you're gonna have these chipmunks running around with their cell phones and taking pictures of each other while they're mating, and then they'll make chipmunk.
But the idea is how little we know about actual biology of animals. We talk about the jacana,
Yeah,
we talk about the chipmunks, we talk about
yeah,
we talk about the apes and how they do it and everything, because it gives us an idea about what. But you ever hear someone sit down and talk about, like I talk about, the biology, the actual biology of children and that. And then you realize if you do that research, at some point, you might balk conservatively on it and deny it, but you're going to realize the male has nothing to do with it. He has very little. It's just an impulse of sex he has that's created by bacteria that's fed to him by a woman, a female. It gets in his brain. It turns on the cuddle hormones, oxytocins, which is right underneath the hippocampus is a little area that squirts out little amounts of, which is very powerful, oxytocin. I can't remember the name of it right now, but that gets you hooked. And then after that's over, you should have the ability as a male to go back to the default position. But most Americans are sick now. They're oversaturated with sex all the time.
Right. That's right. That's right. Like I said, like I was kind of joking around, but like you don't see animals walking around with cell phones. Like
you don't see animals walking around. Yeah,
they're not walking with cell phones, taking film of each other having sex, and then like that's what we do as human beings. Like we're supposed to be evolved beings, and we got this porn around, like people taking video, like a video set. And then they got these they call them stars, and then they're just a bunch of whores, and then they're you know what I mean? That's over sexualizing everything. It's like it's just so ridiculous. It's just so stupid. So that's you're right. Everything's over sexualized. I mean, you see these women walking around with their boobs hanging out and their ass. They get an implant. I mean, that's so unnatural. You're getting a boob job and you're getting your ass implant. Like it's just so insane. And then you add the makeup and so now we have a culture of just a bunch of simps, that are just bowing down. Susan's really starting to piss me off here in the chat.
Don't do it. Don't get mad. I tell you this a million times. Don't get mad. Let me ask Susan a question. What happens now that in 1974 the Morale Act is gone and women have the ability to be polygamous now? What happens to your idea of the traditional conservative relationships? What happens to that? The man gets lied to. He gets enslaved through this biological thing, and the woman goes on and has baby daddy number 1, baby daddy number 2, baby daddy number 3, and baby daddy number 4, has 4 children. All 4 of those men were lied to under a traditional conservative, and there's no such thing as a good wife anymore. She's polygamous. 40% of the women in America are polygamous females now. What happens when that happens in this thing that you believe in? Why would men want to sign up for that?
Because they're just brainwashed. They're just not. They don't have the critical thinking skills. I mean, I like Derek. I hope Derek will listen to us, and we're just trying to help him out. But for some reason, he has it in his head that this traditional conservative thing is going to help his life. And
like talk for a minute. I have to hit the other room and for a second.
But it just cracks me up. Like I don't know. It just cracks me up how, like, you don't see animals with makeup. They're mating because they want to keep their race, keep their beings, their species alive, and it's good for them to gather. So they have a tribe, right? So they can gather food together and live and enjoy their lives. And instead we have a culture that's you got all these women with makeup and all this crazy, acting crazy and so you just kind of, we should be mirroring nature better. I think that's how we evolve as a species. Even with, I talk about the foods we eat. We shouldn't be eating like cookies and processed foods. And that's why you feel like crap, right? Eating all these processed foods. You got to stick with eating food that is particularly meat. I think or raw milk and things like that are going to give you nutrition. And so anyway, just getting back to talking about nature. Like how important it is to humans need to mirror nature. Like they don't they don't have these, like your system is more in tune with nature because they don't have these structures, these institutional structures that really oppress people. Whether it's taxing people on everything. People get taxed on everything. Well, that hurts your incentive to go out and work hard a lot of times because you get. I think that's one of the reasons why I'm not moving to California. I was going to move to California. I was ready to go. I just did more analysis on it, and boy, I'm paying 10. I'm going to because I'm on a high tax bracket. I'm going to pay 10-15% in taxes on my income. I don't need to go partners with them. I'll just go back to Nevada at 0% or Texas.
Yeah.
I lived in Texas for a while too. It's like,
well, that's what you're paying into. You're paying into the taxes. You're paying into a system that's supposed to take care of these things for us.
Yeah.
And then they're double taxing men.
Right.
They're not taking care of why. Like I said, there's a social institution that's corrupt. It's very explainable.
Right.
It's Durkheim's social fact. These institutions become self-interested in themselves, employing people, getting money. That they're stealing from the altruistic side of that, from the men that are paying the taxes. Now, I believe that we should pay the taxes, but I do believe that it should go straight over. It should straight over to. I did that the left right thing. Did you see that? It should go straight over to the people, the poor. And in this instance, the poor are females, baby mamas, and everything. You've already paid your child support because every male in America is pre-cucked.
Yeah. It's
by taxes, but they steal those taxes.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like when you're young, like, I'm in my, I'll just make up an age. I don't know, because I'll be close enough. I'm in my 50s now. So here's the thing. Here's the deal. It's like when I was in my 20s or 30s, I felt like I could just do any, I had all this energy. I had great health. I had it all, right? I had it all. And then so you figure, well, it's not a big deal. I can go ahead. I can have it. Like my cousin, he's got like 6 kids. He's got a big job. He's a partner at a law firm, and the guy's smart as a whip. And he's got 6 children, and he's like 40. And it's like, dude, so you better watch out because you're heading towards a really stressful thing. I don't know how you can manage that stress, because his wife's a stay-at-home mother or whatever. But I mean, the guy's a great guy and everything, but boy, you can do it when you feel like you're in your 20s and 30s. But boy, when you get to my age and your age, Joe, it's like it's not that we're slowing down. Both of us are real strong guys, but you get to that point where I got a little now. I was riding my bike a lot last summer. Now I got a little bit of a back issue. I got a little minor back problem. Now that led to my foot being screwed up. Yeah, and now you slow down a little bit, and then. But the wife's not. They're not going to put up with that stuff. They want you to be that 20-year-old guy. When you're in your 60s, they still want you to be that 20-year-old guy. But you're not that 20-year-old guy anymore. Yeah.
And there are no social backdrops for males after the male. Like I worked for 30, 40 years here. 40 years, good 40 years, probably longer. About 40 years I worked. I worked since I was 12 years old. They liked it when they were getting the utility from me. But as soon as they don't want to pay for that. There's no social backdrop for men. There is a social backdrop for women, but there's no social backdrop for men. And I've seen most incidences we get excluded from that. I have 2 stories that this young guy that was he couldn't get the health insurance through the Health and Human Services because he was back on his child support. They excluded him from the same in the same system that was supposed to be freely giving these health, denied him.
Yeah.
So how was he supposed to get back to work so he could pay his child support? And that's the garbage in a because they're stealing the money.
Yeah.
They're stealing the money.
And trust me, that's why you get these guys you wonder why a guy has a heart attack in their 30s or 40s or when they're young. It's the blood pressure goes up. Because I noticed that. I have some of that. From people that have taken advantage. I've never been married, have no children. I've still had a lot of people taking advantage of my kindness, through using my utility, and it's particularly simps.
Right around 50, you're going to go through this period of, if you're not 50 yet, you're going to go through this period of severe anxiety.
Yeah,
Because your body you're having more pains. Your body's breaking down. You're
Right.
not able to do your testosterone is lower. You're not able to do what you used to do, and you're going to have to figure it out. It's going to be a period of severe anxiety, and it reflects itself in the heart. It reflects itself in the coronary system. It
Mhm.
reflects itself mentally. A lot of men pop at that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
And this is all due to the overuse of the male utility.
Yeah, no question, and it happens in corporate America a lot too. Because I have 20 years of experience, and I apply for these jobs. And sometimes I don't get interviews, and when I do get interviews, I get disrespected like really badly sometimes. And
Yeah.
so I've learned to not to get upset. Like if they don't hire me, because I understand what's going on. They want to hire the younger people for less money, and they can kind of have more utility with those people. But so I just learned, okay, well, I'll just settle for a job that maybe doesn't pay as much, but at least I can take care of my life. And that's the beauty of Mgtow too. I don't have these dependents and everything, so I don't have the stress. But yeah, no, that's true. That's you're going to get that when you get older. You're going to get it. Because and it will show itself with your blood pressure, your blood sugar, or whatever. So you got to kind of tie it all together and just figure out a way to really protect yourself. And to me, the best way is going Mgtow. We have the answer.
Looks like Susan didn't want to answer the question.
No, well, that's the thing. None of them do. I mean, you don't see Joe Buddy, you don't see Jemmer.
They'll sign up for this thing when they know down the line. You can observably look around your neighborhood. I wanted you all to do this week. I want every one of these guys that listen to this. I want you all to go out in your neighborhood and identify the percentage of baby mamas with children living in polygamy situations, 1, 2, or 3 baby daddies, in normal traditional society. And you will find you'll be able to spot the houses. Just look for junk in the trash all around the yard.
Yeah.
Picking it up. The house is falling in default. And look for the kids that don't have these mentor figures. It will be baby mamas 1, 2 that have baby daddy number 1, 2, 3, or 4 that's just getting money from the government, and even living in that house on the government. You'll be able to identify them quite quickly in your neighborhood. I can identify every single one of them just by the condition of the house and whether the police have been there. And look at that thing. Look at what it's doing to our society. Look at what it's doing to your neighborhood, and then realize that 40% of the women out there are, and some of them do a good job. I'm not saying all of them are bad. Some of them that just take the altruism and they go on and they keep making that same mistake again of having a baby and without a mentor figure or not being able. And what it is not taking the responsibility. They don't have a job. They're just sitting back and going, the government's going to pay me $35,000 a year just to sit here and have babies. So I'm going to take that.
Yeah, it's sick. It's disgusting. And then they obviously don't know how to raise any children. That's why these guys, and it really is why you see men acting like simps and really acting like a bunch of little punks. It's because they're raised by mothers. They're
raised by mothers.
They don't have a father figure around. They don't have any father
figures in our society.
Yeah. Like my father used to beat my ass if whatever I did, he used to beat my ass. Like if I did something stupid,
right.
And
you heard.
me and you are probably the two coolest guys. You're the coolest guy in Cleveland, and I'm like the coolest guy on the East Coast. You're more Midwest, but whatever. But so it's like there's a reason for that. We had strong father figures, mentors.
Right.
But fatherhood's not real. But the thing is, I had mentorship through my uncles and other people too. But going back to the baby mama thing, so you see these kids, they just don't know what it's like to. They just they don't have a mentor. They don't have any mentors. They don't have any.
The Gemmas and the Joe Buddies with the fatherhood mentor.
Right. Their fathers.
Now,
if you did it your way, where we acknowledge that fatherhood's not real, and you could have you can introduce more stronger. Men become stronger, right? And then you have better role models. You have better role models for the.
There's two kinds of people in this world. There's the Joe Buddies, the traditional guys, and the Gemmas and the Charleses and the Coach Eli's and everything, and they have fatherhood issues. Now, my issue with my father. When I I looked at what my father was doing. He had 9 kids. He was doing it all by himself, and I felt bad that I could not. I started working at the age of 12. I wanted to, but I was so selfish at that age that anytime I got any money, I usually bought myself a pair of jeans or something. And I was a selfish, and I felt bad around 17, 18 years old. That's why I joined the army, because I can no longer take his assistance, because I felt bad because he was working overtime and killing himself. And I was being a selfish little immature brat.
Yeah. Yeah.
How I grew up. I joined the army at 17 because I didn't want to be that child, the selfish little immature brat with father issues. I wanted to be a man.
Yeah.
And there's 2 kinds of people in the world. There's the people with fatherhood issues that my father didn't do enough.
Right.
No, more than enough.
Right. My sister's like that.
I feel bad for taking that.
Yeah. I have a sister like that. She's like, we lived in this nice neighborhood. We had a nice house, like always food on the table. We had a great extended family. And then she makes a comment like, yeah, it was tough, because my father liked to drink the wine a little bit, whatever. But he wasn't abusive. He just liked to drink the wine. And, they didn't have those fireside chats or whatever, all this crazy stuff that, it's just, the world tells you, oh, you have to have like that article we read, The New Fatherhood. That's just like, what an insane article. Like just talking about how men are not doing enough. Remember she made that comment? Are men doing enough as fathers? I mean, that's insane. I mean, what do you want a guy to do? Work 10, 12 hours a day? He's tired. He comes home. Yeah. He's got to have an emotional, a chat with his daughter for 3 hours just so to meet her emotional needs. I mean, that's not realistic. That's too much.
Yeah, what they're really saying is women are just not being good mothers anymore. They're not being responsible for their body and their choice and their children. They're just not. They want you to do their job now.
Yeah, exactly. They want you to do their job of being right. That's women's job, really, right? Pretty much is to be more of a nurturer type thing. While the man goes out and hunts and gets the
right,
the
and that's
money or whatever.
Traditional relationship.
Yeah, they can't even fulfill that role. They want men to do they want men to be that guy.
You only get the idea of the traditional relationship while you're in the traditional, and that may be a year or 2 before she moves on from you in a polygamous way to baby daddy number 2. Then you become a slave.
Yeah, they want the man to stay up and read Dr. Seuss to their kids before they go to bed.
Yeah, that's ridiculous because slavery is what slavery is. And men aren't slaves. If this whole system would just be, if people would just look at what I'm saying here, and with the system as you got to get rid of marriage, you got to get rid of the divorce system.
Yeah,
you got to get rid of traditional relationships. I don't care who a woman sleeps with. I don't care if you want to do that. That's sexual. It doesn't matter to me. But I'm not a slave in this anymore. And that's what men have to start saying. It's like, no, we'll pay our taxes. We'll pay for those systems. A matter of fact, if it's my way, the system will cost very much less. It's just a digitalized system where the moms go down and say, I'm having another baby, and this is the money I make, and I'm trying to be responsible here. And the government makes up for that. That would cost so little.
Yeah, it's oppressive. I had to sell a house recently. It's just too much. Taxes were like $7,000-8,000 a year. It's like, forget. I'm done. Yeah, I'm not putting all that pressure on myself. I'll probably sell my other house too, and I think I'm done. I'm just I don't need all this space.
That they think they have the right to tax you on your property that's already paid for. They have the right to tax you on commerce. Your house is not commerce.
That's crazy. That's absolutely insane. All that pressure.
It's like taxing on your shirt.
All that pressure, and then they charge interest if you're late on the tax payment. Now you charge interest, and they're making money out of thin air. That's a terrible thing. My father used to always he hated interest, man. Right? He paid off his house within probably 5 years or
it's his house now.
Yeah, he was a stud, my father, and he was like,
the government
really. They used to bother him a lot, boy. Getting in any kind of interest type thing, that's just you're making money out of thin air, man. That's terrible.
Yeah, these institutions, we don't need. Like I tell you, we have 200,000 people maybe in this whole county. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 government buildings surrounding me in this county that we're paying for.
Yeah.
And their justification for them payments is house taxes, which most of the houses were paid off in the 50s. And it's like, and if they are Christian and they believe in that thing, they're just they're breaking some moral laws there, and they're breaking a constitutional law that says they can tax us on commerce. My house is no longer in commerce.
Right. I had a friend that was from Hawaii, and his family had a lot of money, and they inherited all this wealth, this property, and like a lot of money, millions of dollars. And they said they had to sell it because the taxes got so high. Yeah. They jacked up all the taxes.
They jack up the taxes,
and then they had to sell it. This guy was I was playing blackjack with him.
That's when the institutions in our government become corrupt. Yeah. The only reason they're doing it is so they can the institution.
They push out. Yeah,
there wouldn't be no money to pay.
Right. They pushed his whole family. They had all these properties, and he ended up moving to Vegas. That's where I knew him, and he had to they had to sell it because it was like absurd amount of money in taxes. I think it was I want to say 25,000, 30,000. It was an absurd amount every year. Every year he had to come up with that money, and they were not they were not in a position to had to pay it, so they had to sell it. He had to sell it, and he would. Yeah, so you kind of learn those things, and even though maybe some of us are not going to be in those situations where we have 25,000, excuse me,
it goes down to the
even if it's 3,000 or 5,000, that's still a lot of money that you're. It's still a lot of money to pay in taxes. That's a lot of money.
That's paying $12,000 a year for taxes, and it was crazy, and it's But that's the utility. Who built the house? The workmen built the house.
Right.
These people in these institutions didn't build them. They're just. It's the argument goes down to the burgess against the proletariat again, and these utilitarian systems that they don't have to do the work because they're the chosen ones.
Right. They're the royal bloodlines. Like I
said,
the
royal bloodline.
The video I sent you that was. Correct. I've watched a lot of those types of videos. Now is probably the best one I've ever heard. And because she backs it up, because she's an academic, right? And she backs it up with research. Like a lot of these yahoos, they go on YouTube and they make these videos about bloodlines, but they don't know shit. It's like fourth-hand information. She gets the first-hand information. She did all the research, and then it just shows. You're right. They do have these bloodlines that are running, these institutions. They're running the institutions. You're right. They have these lighter-than-air jobs, and she says that in the video how they get these. They position these people to get these jobs, whether it's a president of a university or that's talk about a lighter-than-air job. You ever see the salaries at these? You're president of a university. What do you do all day? What do you do? You're making $1 million or more.
There's a very good book that I always, and it gives you an idea of what happens in our community. Amory Cleveland writes what happened, what broke society.
Yeah.
Talks about the registry, and he knows of the registry because he used to be on the registry. He was raised in a rich family.
Right.
And that rich family became poor, so they pulled him from the registry, and he couldn't get the same benefits.
Right. Right.
And he explains this system of how they keep the corruption going, how they keep these social them 8, 9, 10 buildings around me. They ain't doing no work. They're just the kings and queens. And we're paying for it out of our house taxes. That's how they get you.
Well, it always goes through it's always the institutions. They're right in your face, whether it's your churches, it's your universities, your marriages.
You give Caesar what due Caesar. No, that's
right. Give Caesar what is Caesar's. Right. Yeah, that goes right. Exactly.
You're saying what are you saying? That there's some guy that's better than you, that's a king that I have to pay?
Right.
To be a king?
Right, you have to pay to live. Right, that's ridiculous. Paying to live. It's again, I like to mirror nature. It's like in nature, guys like me and you, I'm not trying to brag. I always talk about how our size, but our size matter. It matters because we're not going to be intimidated. We're not going to be intimidated by an. We'll have the artillery. We're not afraid to shoot a gun. Stuff like that. We'll kill an animal for food. Right. So in nature, we're going to be fine, right? And then
we talk about these naturalistic laws and everything. We're talking about if men would stand up in our society and go to blows with this thing, we can get rid of those 20 buildings that we don't need. We can get rid of those people very quickly.
Yeah, you don't need them.
To have the strength to do it.
I see some professors, Boy, they're making a lot of money, man. It's just like, they don't deserve to make that much money. I mean, it's just, I'm sorry. I don't really see it. I mean, making $250,000 as a professor, or some of them making $500,000, and that's a lot of money, and that's how they keep it going. That's how they keep all the BS going.
I don't even know how many lectures I've walked out of in my life.
Yeah, they're not, and they're not even giving good information. It's and the same thing with the medical. You're seeing with the medical thing too. I don't want to go there too much with the medical stuff, but you can see the corruption there too. Like,
well, they're making their self an institution too, and we've seen it come out with the coronavirus. Why is it that Health and Human Services doesn't have to take care of the vaccines? Why is it thrown on the CDC? It's too much work for them because they're the chosen people.
Well, if you read the article that Fauci wrote in 2020 March, I think it was the Journal of New England Journal of Medicine. He said it's a seasonal flu. I mean, everyone's panicking over this thing, but you're supposed to treat it like a seasonal flu. But anyway, I know we might disagree on that one, but yeah, the main thing is that you have two, and they do it through politics, of course, too. So everyone wants to blame these politicians. These politicians are really just they're just salesmen, really.
They're just salesmen. They want to keep their positions in society.
Yeah, they're not really. They say, they are corrupt, but they're
corrupt.
But they're not. They don't have any power. Is what I'm trying to say. They're told what to do, because they don't do what they're told, and they just get
they're told what to do because they want to keep the position.
Right. So yeah.
That's the social strata.
And then of course you got the military. Then you got the military too, which they take the best and brightest, and then they they're probably the strongest. I don't know if they're the brightest, but because you're not that bright if you're joining the military these days. I don't think you are. I think you can't be, because you got to see the utility play. They're taking all your utility as a young man, to join the military.
Well, we had opportunity over these last few years to defund the government, and it's the social pressure to fund the government through these small townships and stuff. They all pull together and everything because they want to keep their jobs and they want funding. Yeah. They want to spend your tax money without having to work.
Yeah,
they don't want to have to work in industry where they're going to end up in the agricultural industry and have to actually do work for a living.
Right. I see a lot with these managers in corporations. They do nothing. They absolutely do nothing. All they do is get a whip, and then they just want to crack the whip on the people that are underneath them. They don't do any of the actual work.
Yeah, you got the straw boss.
Yeah, they don't do any of the actual work. That's why I had a guy I was working with, and he was my manager, I guess you want to call him that or whatever, but he did none of the work. He used to stay by the beach all day. I used to try to, hey, I said, you're going to help me with some of these accounts, and he'd just be at the beach, and like he thought it was some kind of sucker. Like I was just going to do. Like I quit that job within 6 months. I was like, forget this guy. He's not into it.
Yeah,
but that's what they want you to do. Lighter than air jobs. They want you to do all the work, and they sit back and get the benefit. Yeah, they have these office jobs, and they just sit there and they want to direct you and tell you how to do the work, but they won't lift a finger to help you.
Yeah, they don't want to actually do work, and
right.
They're the entitled portion of our society that figures they don't have to work. Like I said, Mao's 8 years on the farm.
Right, and that's why they love hiring these younger, like people in their 20s, and it's because they can control them, and they're naive, and they'll do anything. They'll do actually. When you get older and you start developing critical thinking skills, you're not going to put up with that kind of crap.
The social structure should be set up where the first 6 years of your life is in agriculture. The second 6 years is in building, and you can structure courses around this. It's the third 6 years of your life should be somewhere in middle management, managing the slaves below you, and then the fourth 6 years of your life should be all this collective knowledge that you got and how to manage the system should buy you the rights, and the work that you did should buy you the rights to eat, live in a home, and get you power utilities.
Yeah, and then it should be really at the point where you should not have to pay taxes. But so now we have to work with what we have, though.
Right, and then
you work with what you have, and then I would definitely get away from situations where
you have to involve yourselves in the commerce of the country, and then a lot of people alleviate themselves of the duties. And the commerce of the country is agriculture, building, and road work, and that stuff. And everybody should share in the division of labor equally. And that's how you get your education, and that's how you get your position. If you do these things right, and I say I did all my things right, and then they ostracized me from my position, because there's people that never do this work that they have to give the position to. That's where the registry comes in. That's where they're assumed they're entitled to that. To live off.
Well, they're taught that. They're taught that when they're little children. That they're taught that you're from a royal bloodline or whatever. And I'm talking about I'm talking about people that we don't, like their bloodlines that go, I'm not talking about people that their fathers are president of a bank, even though that might apply too. But
that might apply.
But it's even people that are way above that guy.
Right. Yeah. A lot of people. There's a lot of people that work generally in the government. Families. There's families that strive within the government, and them kids will never have to see a day on the farm.
I remember we had this guy where I lived.
Where slavery comes in. This is what. This is how. And it always bothers me on how the minorities perceive this, and they talk about it in such a way where it's acceptable, and it shouldn't be acceptable. Everybody should, and we should be talking about the division of labor rather than how I feel about somebody's skin color or what I believe gender is. That's the diversions. That's the misinformation, the traditional misinformation. That's Willie. We talked about that, Lee, with Willie Lynch laws. How do we separate and divide the slaves?
Yeah.
Oh, they know how to do that. They do that very well.
Yeah. And then so that's why we go Mgtow. We just walk away from it, and then we try to make the best life we can. I mean, for me, it's like I've mostly lived in nice houses, nice neighborhoods, whatever. But but it was through hard work, of course, and a lot of stress. But now as I've gotten older, I don't want that life anymore. I want low stress. So the way to do it for me is just probably liquidate. When the time is right, I'll liquidate all my properties and then just rent a room from I'll still live in a good neighborhood. I think everyone should try to. I think that's a good goal. Like try to live in the low crime, good area, because that's important. You don't want to be in an area where your neighbor's like a drug dealer or whatever. You know what I mean? You want to live in a good neighborhood. I think that's important. So it's good to work for that. But here's the way I do it. As a Mgtow, I can just rent a room. I rent a room from somebody that I trust, that has demonstrated integrity.
You own your room already.
Yeah. But yeah, no, you should. But just from being a practical standpoint,
a practical standpoint on this is I was listening to one of those pundits on a thing, and he says, this check's going to come this week, and then some people can afford to pay their rent. And I said to him, I said, maybe it's not that they're able to pay their rent. Maybe rent is the problem.
Right, that is the problem.
Rent is the problem.
Or keep it low, or make it reasonable. I mean, based on
that's when you have these kings and these queens that own the property, and they're charging the serfs, the slaves, rental on the property, so they have to go to work to. That's the problem. You shouldn't have to pay rent. You should already own your property. I've done enough work in this society where this is mine. But how are they going to get that back from me? Well, they're going to do it through taxes. They're going to do it through debt. They're going to get it back from me. Even at my death, the way they do it through Health and Human Services is they jack up the health care bills, and then you're indebted to them, so they take your house, ending the family legacy.
That's right. That's what happened with me. I had to.
Yes, that's what's happening to you right now, and that's all
through me now. And because the taxes are too, it's not a reasonable investment anymore. I'm just managing the property for the bank. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah,
they're making money on
the property for a bank because the bank assumes they already own your property.
Right. It's a terrible thing. That's why it's terrible. Like tax. I think that's why states like Nevada are going to explode. Like Nevada is going to explode in the next.
I think men need to go
5 years because Nevada states Nevada, you got low property tax, you got no state income tax. It's like that's a state that's going to absolutely it's going to take off.
There should be
California. California is they're going to
here in Ohio.
California's toast because people are they just can't afford it. You're going to pay 12%. If you make a lot of money, you're paying over 10%.
Now here in Ohio,
and then actually property taxes are a little lower in California.
In Florida, they made a deal: no food taxes or are no house taxes. You can have house taxes, or you can have taxes on food and commerce. They chose taxes on some states chose taxes on food, but here in Ohio we made this thing. We chose to have house taxes over food taxes. Now the government has figured out how to backdoor those food taxes. The price of an orange is no different. The price of a gallon of milk is no different in Ohio than it is in Florida, even though the tax situation is very much different. So they're cheating on both ends of these things now.
Well, another thing too, though, here's the thing you got to remember too. They're always bringing in new suckers to the game. So
yeah, that don't.
So that's what keeps it going. Yeah, that's what keeps it going.
Right. At one time around here,
bringing in all these younger people that they're naive. They don't understand.
Yeah, they're naive. They don't understand. At
so
one
keep
time,
it going. They keep it going.
At one time in this neighborhood, when this was a new community, you bought your house with the idea that your garbage was going to be picked up, that was going to be taken care of, and your water was going to be delivered to you at a reasonable price. Now you have to pay for your garbage, and somebody forgot about that. Now we have to pay backdoor taxes for foods, and somebody forgot about that, and they want to keep all the money now. They want it all.
Yeah, they want it all. Yeah,
it's just like the baby mom assistant. They just want it all, and we keep giving it to them. And the men don't stick up for their rights.
No,
but the men have no idea because the men are so dumbed down now. We got for sure. In this conservative system, that oh, I'm happy just paying my slave taxes. I'm the best slave.
Right. We want our jobs.
We want our jobs.
Yeah. Well, the smart guys are the ones that do the,
Yeah, half-willing rules is getting you to be the best slave. You're a better slave than everybody else.
Well, and then that leads to why. That leads to men acting like a bunch of little bitches too, because now they'll do anything for a buck because they need that buck.
Now we talk about
they'll swindle you. They don't really care because they need the money. They got to pay the taxes. So they'll try to swindle other people. It really undermines. It hurts the integrity of the world. Really, it hurts the integrity of the community.
Yeah,
they want to do anything. They want to do anything to get the dollar.
Men need this needs to stop, and men need to get together, and men need to become the police and start policing those government organizations that are stealing from you. And we need to kick these people out of our communities. We need to plow your own snow on your own street. Let's fix our own streets. We can do this very, very cheaply. We don't need these.
We don't need the police. We don't even need the police. I heard to talk about that Roy DeMeo guy. I don't know if you look him up. He's a real fucking nut, right? He died. They killed him like 40 years ago. He was a mob guy.
Yeah.
He was in my neighborhood, and believe me, if I found out who he was and what he was doing, I mean, I would have took care of it myself. Probably. I don't want this guy in my neighborhood. Get him out of here. Get him out of here. Like, we don't want people like that in our neighborhoods. But if I were to do something like that, I'd go to jail for. I go to jail. Yeah, I go to jail for murder or whatever. I'm not advocating murdering people, but if there's someone in your neighborhood that's acting all crazy and everything, back in the day before the police had all this authority, like they would just take care of it themselves. They would just beat his ass up, and then if he did it again, then he'd be gone. Yeah, and then quite frankly, that's a better form of lowering crime.
Better for society, where society,
maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm talking out of my ass, but
the social norms in your society should be abide by.
Right.
Don't hurt other people in your society.
Right. We don't do that stuff around our neighborhood. We don't do that stuff. We don't. This is our community. You don't act that way.
Men will take care of it, but we're not allowed because we're called vigilantes.
We're not
allowed to.
No, we're not allowed to do it. I had this one woman was like singing like at 3 a.m. out of the top of her lungs, and I got out of my bed. I looked out my window. I didn't see her, but I was ready to go outside and say, "What the fuck are you doing?" So you're waking up everyone here. I was ready to do it, but then she stopped and I let it go. But she was doing a good 10-minute solo act, Yeah. And, it's like that kind of shit just doesn't fly. And what held me back was, maybe should I call the police? I got to call the police here. Yeah.
The police only show up after the crime's committed.
Right. It's stuff like that. We've got to take right. It's like the whole system's all like whacked out.
Right. That's the honesty to morality. That's honesty to morality, to loyalty. You should have a loyalty to being moral in your society. But you don't have a loyalty to a group for that more morality.
And it's interesting when you talked about like how these psychopaths, how they get away with crime. You know, it's like they're protected by the police.
They're protected by the police. If you went out there, the chances are you would have gone to jail.
Right. And like this Roy DeMeo guy, like I studied this Roy DeMeo guy. He's just a real nut, you know. He's a psychopath. He was a psychopathic killer in the mob, and they finally took him all those years to finally get rid of him, and he deserved it. He should have gotten rid of the first time they really knew he was a nut.
Yeah,
like they don't need these people around. Like they
in my neighborhood,
but he's protected by the police. He's protected by the police. Exactly.
In my neighborhood, me and my friend, we kind of observe all these things that happen in our neighborhood. I'm the bike rider that I watch everything. He walks his dogs around and he watches everything. We can tell you where every drug house is. We can tell you where every baby mama lives. We can tell you whoever's breaking the law, whatever scam, or just by observing things in the neighborhood. But if two old men can do this by walking around their neighborhood and me riding around, the police can't see it. No, the police can see it, and they're involved with the crimes.
Yeah, exactly. We had guys where I was from that were doing that. These cops were like, I think they were pretty much drug dealers. You know, they were shaking down the drug. They were shaking down the
police were shaking down the drug dealers.
They were shaking down the drug dealers, yeah, and then I think they were reselling it or whatever.
Letting them go.
Yeah, a lot of corruption. They're just a bunch. And why were they doing it? Right? It's for the money. They need the money because they got to pay the taxes. I'm only making, and they'll justify it in their head. Well, the police department's only paying me $50,000-$60,000 a year.
What do I do for my family?
Right, I got to do it for my family. I can make an extra $50,000-$100,000 cash. I could deal in drugs.
Everybody in our neighborhood knows where the drugs are coming. Everybody. Right. I wrote a report just last year. I wrote a report to the FBI. Nobody got back to me. I could tell you every single drug area. I could tell you every single how it's happening.
Yeah.
And nobody got back to me. You know why? Because the institution is selling the.
Because they're the ones selling it, right? Like
Bill
Clinton. Like Bill Clinton had an airport. It was in that video. He had an airport. He built an airport in Arkansas that has no government. Like nobody can go there. Like it's not. It's what's it called? It's under government. Like you can't. It's a restricted area. And he built this airport, and they're pretty much running drugs out of it. I'm not trying to laugh, but it's like it's the reality of the world we live in.
When I worked with the war on drugs, and I was in the war on drugs, and I fought in the war on drugs, and I was a military contractor in that. We worked with the DEA. One of the final straws that broke the camel's back here with the war on drugs is we noticed that after we had seized the fields, we were supposed to plow them under. The transportation was supposed to come and plow, but they were bringing in harvesters. Why were they bringing in harvesters? Because we noticed they were taking the drugs to Texas and putting it in a warehouse. And then we thought, well, we have to investigate this. We started investigating the corporations that were doing this. And that's when our funding ended.
Yeah.
Why? Because who's the drug dealers? The government is.
Government, of course they are.
You can't produce 30 billion OxyContins and have them leak out into the community and have this big drug problem we have without the government being involved. Right. We told on them. Once we told on them, they pulled our. We were good as long as we were fighting the war against the thugs and the people that were competing with them.
Yeah.
But as soon as we figured out it looked at the left and the right of the president at any time, one of those people are selling drugs. As soon as we realized that, they ended us.
Yeah, exactly. It's just psychopaths get protected by the system. That goes back to what we were saying. The psychopaths
get protected. As to remove a lot. They went as far as to cover us up and remove the very idea of what we were doing. That's how far they went.
Yeah, it's awful. It's just an awful thing. That's why I don't get involved. I've never been arrested. I don't get involved in anything.
The government hates competition. Especially with drug trafficking.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't. But boy, if that stuff was in my neighborhood, if there was a kid selling drugs, and I don't know, man. If it's my neighborhood, and I'm not going to live in those neighborhoods anyway. But if I ever did, I don't know. There's going to be a problem, but I would probably just move towards getting out of that neighborhood, first. But if he's a little obnoxious little bitch though, and he's like and he's like threatening people and all this kind of crazy shit. You know, drug dealers are fucking. You know, most of them are pretty chill, I think, but it's not good what they're doing. They're really messing up with people's lives. You know.
Now, when I was running the counseling program for the drug and alcohol rehabilitation, I had my box. I put my box up and I says, any of you guys that want to come clean and do your amends to society about what you've done, you write down who's selling the drugs, and you put it inside the box, and I'll take care of that. I'll take it to the police. You know, within 2 weeks, a motorcycle group came and they came around and tried to strong arm me. And they said, you can't be doing this because, you know, you're going to get, they're like, you're going to get hurt. They're like the mafia, you're going to get hurt. And I said, no one's going to hurt me.
Yeah. We're not afraid. Guys like me and you, we don't give a fuck.
At that point in my life, I was still really stirred and I was like, you guys are going to hurt me. I'm an ex-military, I will break you up. I said to him. It's like, but I seen the corruption. As soon as those things, they send it out down the wire to this gang of thugs that were going to warn me to stop telling on them. And that came straight from the mayor. It came straight, as far as I'm concerned, it came straight from the government to make sure I didn't tell on them.
Yeah.
And I can't, you know, I've seen a lot of this in my life, working and doing what I did. I've seen a lot of this corruption in my life, and it's going to take the men. It's going to take masculinity, and masculinity isn't about getting the pee. Masculinity is about taking back your neighborhoods.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I love watching nature videos of like these animals that just like they're not gonna, you know, they like, you know, they gather, you know, if you try to attack one of their you know own, like they're gonna gang up on you, and they're not gonna take any shit. Like in the nature, they don't. They're not gonna take any shit. Like they're not. And you know, that's the thing is that, you know, we get to our age, you know, in our 50s, we've understood that this intimidation, and like we just laugh at that kind of stuff now. Like I don't like, you know what? And I'm gonna let that motherfucker take. Excuse my language. I'm gonna let that mother effer take the first punch. I'm not, or take the first shot. I'm not gonna be the one being the aggressor. But I'll defend myself. Believe me. And it's gonna. You mess with the wrong guy. I don't care if it's Roy DeMeo, or I don't give a shit who's running the crew down there in New York, or even where I'm from. There's still a lot of those guys hanging around. But you're not gonna intimidate me. That's not gonna happen.
I used to be.
I had a friend in Vegas. He's a real smart guy, very, very high IQ, and he's involved in some stuff. But he's a good guy. Whatever. We're acquaintances, and you know, I don't do anything with him. But you know, he one of the things he told me, he goes, I don't deal with police, because he had an issue, and I said, well, in my reaction, being a simp back then, 10, 15 years ago, I said, why don't you call the police? He goes, no, I don't deal with police. And you know what? He was 100% right. He's 100% right. You don't deal with them because they're not going to help you.
We've tried to start organizations. I told you about. I used to belong to the Oath Keepers 15, 20 years ago, because I was an ex-military guy that worked with the DEA, that worked with these people. I wanted to continue doing what I do in my neighborhood, and the Oath Keepers were like, we're gonna make sure at that point that all this corruption, and that's what masculinity was coming back. But that organization got corrupted by entryists, and it became the disgusting organization it is now. And I had to quit about 5 years ago, because I could no longer stand what I was seeing. Because anytime you compete with these, anytime masculinity starts to compete with these organizations, they will stomp you out. And then it becomes what we see, and it becomes like, don't join a militia, don't start acting like men, because we'll just label you terrorists.
That's a great point. That's a really good point. Yeah. They don't want, right. They want you to be a docile, pay your tax, whatever. That's why you don't get involved, but. Yeah, the Promise Keepers. I remember that. That's a Christian organization. I was actually close to joining that. This is like 20 years ago when I was in my,
Yeah.
I was gonna join them too, and it just.
I seen a real. Okay,
that a Christian slant to it. That was that football coach from Colorado, McCarthy or whatever his name. He was running it, I think.
what I seen is this is masculinity taking back our neighborhoods from the corrupt cops and the corrupt mayors and all these people and these institutions that take your money and try to take your houses.
Yeah.
We need those groups. We need militia, but we need them to understand what they're doing and why they're doing it. It has nothing to do with the political garbage. It has everything to do with masculinity and taking back your neighborhood.
Yeah, that's right.
So we can get rid of drug dealers, so we can get rid of the perverts, so we can start having decent where you have
how they used to do it. Well, that's how they used to do it
together, and nobody goes to jail.
Right. That's how they used to do it back in the day, from what I hear. Like if a guy was a pedophile, he'd be in the Erie Canal River. He'd be with Hoka. No, not. Yeah. Hoka walks on water. He doesn't.
The Proud Boys are another institution that got.
Yeah, there's another one. Yeah, so that those guys would be gone. They would be. Yeah, those guys would be flown. That's how they used to handle it. See, that's why the crime was a lot lower back then.
Right.
Like I'm talking about the guys,
institution. It's a militia that formed that got entryism in it. It got political entryism into it. And that was Gavin McGinnis, where they started racial entryism into it.
I can't stand that guy.
And that's what they do. That's what they will do. The any masculine organization. They did it to the Oath Keepers. They did it to the Proud Boys. The Oath Keepers. They actually voted a woman in as their head in Ohio. It's like, how can you have masculinity if a woman? And then that's when it went corrupt. It went to a political institution instead of masculinity and men taking control of their society. Now we can look at that. What's the farm one called, where the men had enough, and where the grazing rights were going to be lost, and I can't remember that. It was the same thing, but we get entryism into these things, and we have to be guarded against entryism, and you have to know what entryism is. It's about masculinity. That's all it's about. It's about men taking care of their neighborhoods, and that's the common bond between us. But as long as men are as long as men are trad cucks and they're giving their slavery to these institutions that rule their life with an iron hammer, it is worse in America than it ever was in Russia. Right now, these institutions rule with an iron hammer.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And they want you to be their slave. They want you to be that. They don't want to work. That's where this whole thing.
Well, yeah. It's like these guys that I just kind of laugh at guys that don't. But I used to be one of those guys in my 20s, I guess, but once I got into my 30s, I realized.
Yeah, I grew up
knowing how to. Yeah. But you got to know how to masculinity. I think in our society, one of the things is a simple thing like knowing how to shoot a gun. I mean, you think that's. That's an important skill to have. You need to know how to do that if you're a man. That's a lot of defending yourself.
We used to go out when I was a kid. We used to have a lot of woods, and we used to go out and spend a lot of times hunting with BB guns and everything. And you learn how to do that from. My father sat me down and he said, "This is windage sight. Here's how you use your windage sight."
Yeah.
And then we shot across a lake at a frog, and you adjusted your windage, and it was, oh man, I can get within inches of that frog at 300 feet with a BB gun. And then you learn how to shoot another, and you put that away and you put that under your floorboards, because someday we're going to need those weapons in this, because these institutions that have grown in this society are so corrupt. That we're going to need men, but we're going to need masculinity first, and unless we do that.
I notice whenever I get pulled over for a traffic stop, they can obviously see that I own a few weapons, and I think they're a little more respectful. You know what I mean? They know, this guy's got a Glock.
What is a traffic stop? A road taxi.
He's got a bunch of firearms and stuff. So this is not a guy.
The sheriff of Nottingham road taxes. That's all those.
Yeah, yeah. You gotta know how, because I see all these effeminate guys that. Especially coming out of universities that are they don't even, they shoot a gun, they end up shooting themselves, they don't know what the hell they're doing. They don't know how to handle a weapon. They don't know how to they don't know how to handle themselves, and they just don't. They just bow down to this. They're just very effeminate and
they're very effeminate. Men are,
and I think you're right. That ties into all the bacteria they're getting, being estrogen.
They're being estrogenated.
And then I think that ties a lot into their diet too. I mean,
as soon as that bacteria hits,
you don't eat enough meat. You're not eating enough meat.
They're slaves.
They're just eating all this I don't know, like this vegan stuff. If you look it up, like they're very effeminate type people that are not even getting any nutrition, and their bone structure is very weak, and whatever. It's like as a man you should be walking with confidence and I tell you that is a really good point that you brought up though about the police, about how our system it protects these psychos. Like it protects really important concept. Yeah, it's very advanced type idea, and it's very true.
Yeah, and it divides the men and it protects the psychopaths. So there's always
like that Sammy the Bull. He's another rat. He ratted on all his friends, and now he's a YouTube star and this and that. And it's like, well, he got protected. He committed all those murders, and he got protected by the police. Where in real life, in nature, we would beat his ass and he would have been gone. But see, people think, oh, he's Sammy the Bull. You don't want to mess with him. No,
that's what they were telling me. They were strong.
Lock me up in a room with him in my prime. I'd beat his ass. I would beat his ass.
Yeah. No, I'm not going to get hurt. No one's going to hurt me.
Yeah, and I hope he's listening to this podcast, which he's probably not. But I'll tell you where I live, Sammy. We'll meet up someday. But the thing is, like, this guy's a little piece of shit, and he got protected by the cops. He ratted on all his friends, and now he's out of jail. I don't know how a guy like that. That's how it is, Joe. These ex-mobsters are all doing these YouTube things, and they murdered tons of people. How the fuck did you get out of jail? You just murdered all these people, you mother effer. You should be in jail the rest of your life. No, but they cooperate. Oh, he cooperated with us. Oh, and now we got all these other people to go to jail, and it's just so stupid. It just bothers me. Like, I don't know why they have Sammy the Bull has these YouTube channels, and he murdered all these people. Like that really pisses me off. That's not how nature works. A guy like that would just you get his ass beat.
Yeah. And he used the same protectionism that the drug dealers used. He used the same protectionism that it's a corrupt system. He knows it's a corrupt system. We all know it's a corrupt system.
Right.
The only way to get rid of that corrupt system is men, Mgtows.
Right. That's right.
Mgtows.
Right. We'll take care of our own business and
we'll take care of our own business. I don't want.
And crime will go down. Like people would not get out of line. They get out of line because then you have these informants and you have all this other nonsense going on. So I don't know. This is a really good discussion we're having today. I think we're getting into some good stuff, but
we're exposing how things work out in the real world.
The corruption. Yeah, the corruption is just so intense, man.
Our philosophy to the real world and what we see. We have an observable there's an observable morality that we have to, and that's to the truth. And that's all we're saying is there's a truth that these things are happening, do happen, and it starts from one thing. It starts from the corruption of traditional conservative relationships in our society and the loss of masculinity through those traditional conservative relationships. How did they get off? How did they even begin? You think about this. How did they even begin to get off polygamy? How did the women get that off in our society and men accept that? There's 2 million men. There's 2 million at the first time ever in society that there's 2 million men in America that are Mgtows that have sworn off women because they see that. You know what a grand thing that is? Do you know how big that is? To get 2 men to agree on one thing is hard enough. For the first time ever in society, there's at least 2 million Mgtows out there that have sworn off women. That's a feat of just, it's a huge thing that happened and everybody disregards it.
Yeah.
Everybody disregards it. You know how hard that was to do? Do you know how horrible did women have to become for men to swear them off? That's the question we should ask. How horrible did it have to be?
Terrible.
Well, yeah.
Well, poisoning and killing their own husbands. I mean,
baby mamas and polygamy. That's how
get away with it, and they get away with it. I told you about my friend. Like this happens over and over again. Like how she attacks the husband and he goes to jail. I mean, it happens all the time.
How horrible does it have to be for men to start Mgtow? I mean, that's craziness. And to think about that they don't see it. They, go back, amend your laws. We fought a civil war in this country so polygamy wouldn't exist. And then you gave it to them?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, my God. You bunch of immoral. And that's on both sides of the political spectrum. That's the trad cucks on the right, and that's the Joe Biden trad cucks on the left.
Yeah.
And they're all the same part of the same group vying for that traditional conservatism that's killing our society.
Yeah.
Now, I think that was the most progressive out of all of them. We see the corruption. We see the corruption that comes from it. We see the effemination and the anti-masculinity that comes from it. We want it fixed. And until we grow, until we get a little kahunas, until we start, flexing our muscles, and we will eventually, they're going to keep coming at us. They're going to try to separate and divide us. They're going to try to keep stealing from us like they have. And
You're talking about Mayor of Mgtow and those guys like that?
We have to get together, and that's what we say.
Are you talking about guys like Mayor of Mgtow? And
yeah, the guys will keep coming at us. And until we get together and we start that institution and we all pull together as a group, that's when they will feel us.
Yeah, yeah. They're too protected. He's a bit. I can't stand that guy.
No, I don't want it. It's the same people that, Mgtow's not a group. It is a philosophy and it's a group.
It's a group too. Yeah, we're definitely. Yeah, it's both.
And we're getting stronger.
Yeah, we got to get. It all starts with an idea. It starts with an idea.
It's an idea. It's a philosophy.
Right.
We're getting stronger. We're growing, and sooner or later, we're going to put ourselves together, and then we're going to become a social force.
Yeah.
We become part of that material. Strata, we will become that material social fact.
You just got to get to the point. You're just not going to take any shit from anybody, and then we don't have to. We can just walk away. We just walk away from it, and that's a great answer because now you're not getting our taxes anymore. We're not going to buy property. We're not going to buy property. We're just not going to buy it. We're not going to. You know what I'm saying? We're going to. Like if we buy, until you change the laws and give us an incentive to say you buy the property, you own it, you don't pay any taxes on it. Okay, well maybe I'll consider it. Or move to a state like Nevada. Yeah, move to a state like Nevada where the property taxes. I mean, I have a house there that's worth a pretty good amount of money, but I don't pay a huge amount of taxes. It's like it comes out to like a couple hundred a month, which is still a lot of money though. It's still $2,000 a year or whatever the hell it is. But it's not like, East Coast fucking, 7,000, 8,000, 9,000, 10,000. My uncle pays like 12,000 for his house, and my house in Nevada is worth what his is. And he pays 12,000. I pay 2. I mean, so you got to identify maybe a situation that's favorable for you. But yeah, you're right. They're just, we have to understand what's going on and make it.
One disgusting city after Albuquerque, your capital.
Oh yeah, I heard there's a lot of drug problems there.
70% of that city works for the
New Mexico. I'm talking about New Mexico though.
What?
Albuquerque, New Mexico?
Well, not Albuquerque. The capital of New York.
Albany. It's terrible corruption.
70% of that city works for terrible institutions. They produce nothing. They charge everybody in that state taxes. That's why you're running a city, so those people, those elite, can live without having to actually do anything.
And it's a beautiful area too. That's the thing.
I bet it's
a beautiful area. It's like you're in a really good location. You got Boston, New York City nearby. You got Montreal up there. You got Syracuse to the east west, which is a nice city. You got but no, you're right. They got these lighter than air jobs, and
they got the lighter than air jobs. They don't have to. They don't even know where their food comes from.
I mean, I have friends that are teachers, and they got into teaching. It's like because they weren't really good at anything else, and now they're hey, listen, they paid their dues, they did their work, but they're going to get these huge pensions when they retire.
Right.
And they don't really deserve that, really. I mean, they deserve it because they showed up to work, but that's all they did is show up to work. Teaching's a lighter than air type job.
Right. We did a research project on Albany, and it's such a disgusting little town. It's
all
beautiful and everything. But
sure it is.
That is the typical socialist state there.
That's right. That's very true. It's very true.
where they have the Burgess that don't feel like they should have to involve themselves with and it'll be the ones that they're always talking. They're the ones that are always talking about immigration because they want to keep the immigrants. They want to keep them picking the food and on the farms so they can have their lifestyles there. Man, if I could drop a nuclear bomb on one city.
Well, and then you're seeing it with Como too. Como's got all these problems with the women, and like it's all starting to come out now with this guy with the nursing homes, and he did all this.
Oh yeah, he tried to kill off all the old so they can take more of that money and not have to be old.
He's a real sicko, and
at the beginning of this coronavirus, this is just designed to kill off all the old people.
I think that was one of the strategies. For sure.
Genocide is what.
And then even with the vaccines, I'm not taking the vaccine. I have friends that have taken the vaccine. They got now all of a sudden they got back problems, and a couple of them have their ears are ringing, but for like 2 or 3 days now, their ears have been ringing. Like that's not normal. Like your ear rings, it should ring for a couple seconds and then it goes away.
He's a disabled. He rides his bike. He's so impressive. He impresses me. He's disabled. He got braces on his legs, and he rides his bike every day back and forth to the store. And he just got the shot, and he says he's been feeling bad for like a couple days now.
Yeah, why would you? Listen, it's your body, your choice, whatever. But
I'm not an anti.
Why would you?
That I believe that the vaccine works, but I believe there will be a toll you will pay for it.
There's gonna be like, what do you think you're gonna live? These people have this fantasy that they're gonna live forever because they're taking a vaccine shot. I mean, you got to listen to your body. That's what it comes down to. But you got to listen to your body. I mean, I'm taking some muscle relaxers to go to sleep, but eventually I'll come off of it. Eventually, my foot will heal 100%, and I won't take anything. I won't take any pills. So I don't even like taking pills because you know why? They're toxin. You're putting toxins in your body. That's essentially what it is. Medicine is essentially you're putting a toxin in your body.
Yeah.
And trust me, I've worked with doctors for over 20 years. They're not all that they're cracked up to be. They
want to sell the drugs.
No, they right. All they do is pretty much diagnose and then just prescribe pills. That's all they do. They don't really. I think even chiropractors are higher. I esteem the chiropractors even more than the medical doctors.
They get kickbacks for the drugs that they're selling, and
that's right.
That's how the sales industry works in there. If you ever went into the medical sales industry, which you know a lot about, you would see corruption and these doctors just prescribe. They're just randomly prescribing the newest medicines without even research.
Yeah, because you see a lot of drugs that they come up and then they come off the market afterwards.
Yeah, because they're bad. They're hurting people. But hey, the pharmaceutical company that.
Because once they'll claim, oh, we spent all this money on R&D, research and development, and then which is total bullshit because they don't really spend as much as they claim they do. And then once they get the formula down, the chemical formula down, then it's so cheap for them to make the pills. They make a huge profit on the.
They get
on pills.
A copyright to the formula.
It
was like you can look at it in gabapentin. When they're for what is that for?
Gabapentin. It's Neurontin. Yeah, it's for.
They had the contract for 5 years. Lyrica had the contract.
Yeah, Pfizer. Yeah, it's Pfizer.
That shit was so expensive. It works, but it was so expensive, and it was just crazy.
They did it with the HIV stuff too. I think
they raped. How much does it?
Is that even a real disease? I mean, it's a real disease.
What was the basketball player that had the AIDS?
Magic Johnson. Yeah, I don't think he ever had it. I think it was all a scam just to kind of get.
How did Magic Johnson cure himself at the South Park episode? How did he?
What did he do? Yeah, what did they say? What did they say? What was it? Say it again, sir.
$60,000.
Yeah. I think that was like they had some dirt on him or something. There's so much going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. I'm not trying to be a conspiracy nut, but boy, he looks awfully healthy 30 years later.
Yeah. The big joke was they just made a bet out of money and they laid people on a bet of $300,000 and then it cured them.
Yeah. It's just this whole thing with it's just the whole information. flow is like really corrupt. Like they put all this fear in people. I mean, I was kind of like when the Corona thing came out, I really didn't want to wear a mask, but it's really not a big deal. It's really, I got one of those Go Cool masks. They're really nice because you can kind of breathe through it easily. And I just don't want to bring attention to myself, so I just wear the damn thing. But you got people out there who don't wear a mask. You got to fight for your freedom. It's not a big deal. You go in and you go to the store. You put
a mask on.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable and it sucks and it's not constitutional. But you're drawing more attention to yourself. Just kind of blend in and just let it go.
I was seeing Hollywood hyperbolic. If you ever watch what is that one show? They show the nurses and the doctors with these cuts on their face from the mask. That is so not real.
Yeah, you just got to go with the flow. You got to kind of go with the flow sometimes in life. I think that's one of those situations. You just have to go with the flow. Find a mask that's comfortable and then just wear it when you need to, and don't make a big deal out of it.
I know a guy. He works at the grocery store up here. He works with a mask on 10 hours a day, like 6 days a week, and he has no cuts on his face or in his nose. Yeah. It's like he says that's just a hyperbolic portrayal of having to wear a mask, and nurses and doctors are so special.
Yeah. Yeah.
These special people.
They're just nurses, like doctors they're just like these nerdy guys that like 90% of them are these nerdy guys that they have good memorization skills. They're not really their critical thinking skills are very weak, and they just kind of go in there and, once they see enough patients over their career, they just treat them all the same.
My 200, what do I pay? Oh, $470 a month I pay for health insurance, and wow. I can't afford to get operations that I need.
Wow.
So I'm paying them nurses and doctors $470 a month, so I can't afford to get the operations I need on my shoulder and my knee.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Is that an entitled society? And they want to talk about who's entitled in our society? Health and Human Services is garbage. We need to rip the whole system down.
Yeah. They just want your money. I know, that's one of the things, right? They just want your money. They don't really care about you as a person. They just want your money, and that's generally how our society is. That's why people act crazy. And
in my life, I paid into that situation. There was a time in my life where I was paying $1,200 a month for hospitalization for my family. And I never even ever went to the doctor.
Right. That's a lot of money. You're talking probably 10, 15, 20 years ago, right?
Yeah. Back in
$100. Yeah, that's a lot of money.
90s and everything, when them costs went all crazy, and I had a family, and it's like I was paying so much for that stuff, and and man, it's like, you guys are getting all this money, and you're getting money from the government through our taxes, and you're getting $4.2 trillion a year from the United States government to operate Health and Human Services, and you guys can't even involve yourself in giving the vaccines out. It's like, Jesus Christ, it's such a failed society. These are the same Health and Human Services people that run our child support system. They're the same people. They're the same people that screwed that up. They screwed everything up in this society. Health and Human Services in America is such a joke. We need to rip that down, and we need to get rid of the marriage institution. We need to get rid of the divorce. We need to get rid of Health and Human Services, and we need to digitalize that. We need to lay them all off.
Well, they do it with the Child Protective Services too, right? Don't they?
You can start making their money the old-fashioned way by.
The whole Child Protective. What's that? Yeah, they rip families apart. I don't know.
They rip families apart purposely.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you look at that system, that was the American Indians. They were taking their families, ripping them apart. Sarah, that was running for president at one time, had like 30 kids, and that's how she was financing her presidency.
That's
And
I never liked that idea, foster homes and all this kind of crazy. I don't know. It's not really a good thing. They come on, you don't have any. Like I grew up in a big family where it's like if something ever happened to me, I would have had like 20 options of where I wanted to live.
Look
My
at
aunts and uncles, took me in, whatever. But
the famous story of the Gradels up in Sandusky here, which were putting the kids in the cages and getting they were getting $21,000 a month or something from keeping these kids in cages.
Yeah.
But if the money wasn't there, they wouldn't have been doing that. And if the corruption wasn't there, they wouldn't have been doing that. Nobody ever called out the social institutions that allowed for this.
Yeah.
And that was pure 100% the Health and Human Services department that allowed children in cages. And they still do that at the border, and they're still making money off of that. And all they've become is that social fact that are self-interested in themselves. And it's disgusting.
Yeah, that's Albany. You're right. That is Albany for you. It's like
Albany,
New York. That's Albany, New York. That's the state. You should see these yahoos. I went to school with a lot of them, and
where I found
yahoos.
Albany was putting the homeless people on buses and shipping them to other cities. They were doing that.
This is how disgusting some of these state workers were in Albany. Like, I guess there was a couple of them where they would panhandle during their lunch breaks. Like that's how disgusting. So they have a job like at the city Albany, and they panhandle during their lunch breaks.
Yeah, because they took all the real homeless people and shipped them off in buses so they can. People are disgusting. That whole nuke that city. I would.
Well, I used to work in Albany, and then I went to school in that area, and
Jesus,
I couldn't stand the people. Like, the people there are just so ridiculous. They're just so freaking like they have like no creativity, very little creativity there. I mean, they got the egg. It's called the Egg. They have some arts center. It's nice, but for the most part, the people there are just so boring and
that's the typical society. That's the typical side. That's where we were trying to wonder why there was an influx of we were going through our GIPRA reports, and we were trying to figure out where there was an influx from these drug addicted people that were coming from that area, and we have the resources at that time. We were able to trace it right up to Albany.
It's terrible place. I mean, look at the governor. I mean, look at that guy. I mean,
we thought it was going to come from New York City, and then we were surprised that it was coming from elsewhere. They were just busing their addicts and busing their homeless out of the city and dropping them off in Ohio.
Yeah. What a terrible thing. I knew a couple of politicians in that area, and they're really good guys, and
they were giving out fucking OxyContins like crazy, like they were candy there. And then when everybody got addicted, they bust them out of there and send them to Florida and Ohio, and it was, oh God. Oh.
I knew a couple of politicians in that area, and they're really good guys, but they lived in that area, so there's nothing else to do but get, if you want to get anywhere in that area, you got to get into politics, and that's what they did.
They had to get into politics, and
I lost touch with these guys, and I forgot. I don't want to be around these freaking people. Forget it.
Oh God, yeah, that's what Armory Cleveland was talking about. That's what he was talking about. He used to live in that area. He was one of those rich people. He knows how it works.
They're just terrible, and people accept it. They think, oh, this is the way it is. This is the way it has to be. But if you're a true smart person, you're going to really gravitate towards a Mgtow lifestyle, because now you're going to recognize, well, let me try to minimize my cost of living. And I'm going to probably, I think a smart play is, like I said, find a good roommate or whatever, and just rent a room or whatever, and just take the lowest stress job you can find, and then just live your life and enjoy it.
We never say rent a room here. We always say you can squat in a room and just figure out how to squat somewhere for free.
Oh, that's even a better way. They did a ton of that in Vegas back in the day. Like,
my buddy so hates squatters. I was like, you should love squatters. Squatters are the most honest people in the whole world. They see that rent shouldn't exist.
Right. You got to pay to live. The whole idea of paying to live. That's an entire. You have a right to go out and hunt for food. Like, even with hunting permits and all this kind of stuff, it's like, I don't think that stuff's really good. I mean, it's, you should be able to hunt your own food and get your own food and freeze it or whatever. And especially now with the technology we have, you can freeze food and and you'd be all set. And that's the way, you're not supposed to spend all this money at the grocery store.
I do it every year. I put in 15, 16, 17 tomato plants around my house, and I grind them all up at the end of the year, and I freeze them. I make spaghetti with it. At the end of the year, I'll go down and I'll pick apples, and I'll cut them up and do that for pies. And I wish that I could had a big enough 40 acres to grow wheat and corn, and then I wouldn't need nobody.
I mean, the whole idea of having to have you imagine 100 years ago, or people say, oh, you need a permit to fish. They would just slap you in the face. They would say, you're a freaking idiot. No, you don't need a permit to fish. That's a human right to be able to go out and get fish.
Human right to be able to get water, fish,
right?
Meat, fish.
Right. They tax everything, and you have to have a permit, and you go to jail if you. And then, so it's pretty bad.
Yeah, we were talking about my trip coming up, and then I was like, how am I going to get this fishing license thing from state to state? Because I'm going to try to direct myself towards places I can go fishing.
Yeah.
And
like Plus Guy.
Now I got to pay each state like $20 as I pass through.
There's a place called Plus Guy. I think it's called Plus Guy. I don't know. It's near Syracuse. It's got really good. They said it has the best fishing in the country or the world or something. It's like the salmon fish. It's like a freaking amazing place. Yeah, look it up. Yeah,
living in the Great Lakes is definitely great. I fish a lot in the Great Lakes, and because I live a mile away here. It's like
but they don't teach those skills anymore. They don't teach those skills anymore because men are out. They're out working for the state, and they they're not really doing the things that they're not teaching the kids, their children, or whatever. They're not teaching anyone how to fish or how to hunt. And those are things you should learn when you're a child, right? They don't have those. My father did some hunting, but he never really showed me how to hunt, and because he was busy working, and whatever. I understood it, but those are good skills to have. If you know how to hunt, meat and fish and get your own water or whatever. And
there's too many people nowadays, and that's a problem. Well, Mgtow's trying to solve that too, where we're not overpopulated, and you don't have to have babies, and if you have babies, it's the bacteria, the human bacteria has taken over, and someone's going to have to put some and disinfect us.
The DNA is probably a lot weaker, I would say.
Yeah.
We've gone backwards.
Okay. Well, we've gone 2 hours and 2 minutes. We're at that 2-hour mark where I like to keep it, and we had a lot to talk about. Traditional misinformation is the biggest thing. They will lie to you. If you're looking for misinformation and disinformation, you don't have to look too far. You just look into the traditional social industry and how they lie to you. They lie to you from everything from fatherhood to taxes to everything. And we need to shut it down, and it's up to us Mgtows to do that. And we're going to get attacked from every way there is. But if we have a strong Mgtow, and we bond together, we join together, we stop arguing between ourselves, and we get our philosophy right, everything will move forward, and this society will flourish. But they want to stay in a sick society. They want to lie. They want to cheat. They want to steal. They just want to have multiple babies and just kill the society with overpopulation. But that just shows you how stupid these people are. And I think if something we have to purge from this society is ignorance and stupidity. And that's what Mgtow's working on, purging the ignorant ones and the mating ones that just can't stop humping on everything they see.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to start with men, and masculinity is needed. And it's not that stupid PUA masculinity where you peacock and dress up like a bunch of little girls and emasculate yourself. No, it's true masculinity when you start taking back your society and you start taking back these streets and you start acting like the police.
That's
and
true.
Then you plow your own driveways, you get out of your snow, you do those things, you bring the water to your house, And as soon as men start doing that and stop relying on these systems to do it for them because it's easier, I think they'll find out that it's easier to do it yourself. And it's easier not to have to pay these people to keep you as a slave. That's what Mgtow's about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's empowerment. I always talk about that.
Like always,
it's the best path to empowerment.
Yeah, Mgtow is the best path to empower yourself so we can take back our nation and we can start acting like men and women, decent, honest men and women again. But that's going to take men, and I don't see a lot of them out there anymore.
No.
But
They're listening to TFM. They're listening to guys like TFM, who's
that's garbage. His utilitarianism is garbage. And,
guys like TFM and Chris Cantu. They think that's
But we got to get those guys aboard, and we got to get them thinking right. And that's going to be a monumental task. But that's going to take a Mgtow. That's going to take people that are stronger, that are smarter, that are better suited for the job. That's going to take Mgtow, real Mgtow. It's going to take Mgtow monks. It's going to take people that understand it.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, and guys like Coco are still looking for good pickup lines. You know?
Yeah, guys like Coco are looking to pull an oofy doofy in the store and then looking for a good pickup line. That's garbage.
And TFM's got to sell his sex toys too, because he needs the money. He needs the money to.
The default position of sexuality in most males are asexual. Turn it off for a while.
Yeah.
Need beggars.
Right. Go fishing, go hunting, whatever. Go
turn it off. Get together with the men in the neighborhood and clean your own neighborhood up and stop calling the police because they're only going to show up after the crime's committed.
Right. Stop being afraid.
Stop being afraid of your own shadows. God.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, I'm going to shut it down. And thanks a lot for coming around, man. And thanks for being Mgtow, because I don't want to be the only lonely Mgtow left in this world. But thanks for coming around. And most of all, thanks for being Mgtow.